Hey, welcome back in to Sad Times. Sorry we're a little late starting. Appreciate you joining us. For anybody who hasn't been here before, I mean, it is only our second show, but basically, this is a show I came up with B, and where we kind of talk about. I think that anybody who's watching or anybody who's not watching, has been sad before, or is sad maybe every day, sad in different ways. But we do all this shit to hide it. I know that I do, and that itself becomes its own thing. And I'm really interested in what people do to cover up their own sadness, and what people do when they're sad, and how they're feeling internally as opposed to how they feel externally, right? So I just want to have a conversation with people weekly. Of course, if you want to, you can chat in, ask any questions, anything like that. But that's really what I wanted to do, because I think this is something that we all deal with and nobody talks about, or rarely talks about. I mean, I talk about it in therapy every other Tuesday, but it's not a normal thing. You know, you don't go to work and talk about, well, I'm sad. And I think that personally, I think maybe it would be helpful if we all just were a little bit more open about when we were at our worst, quote, worst, when we were sad, and how we dealt with it, and then we can understand each other and be more empathetic. So we weren't on last week, but don't worry. I watched my first week's show, many versions of it, and I took some notes, and so hopefully we'll have a better show for you this week. And speaking of this week, I would like to introduce my friend Jenn. Jenn is here. Hi, Jenn.
Hi, Kevin.
How are you?
I'm well. How are
Great.
you?
I'm doing okay, you know.
Good.
I'm doing okay. So, Jenn and I have known each other for coming up on 5 years now, I think. And we spend a lot of time during the day talking, and Jenn and I have both talked a lot about kind of some of the stuff that we deal with in, the sadder way, or with anxiety. For example, I was just drinking this beer here, and before I put it down, I had to touch it with my other pinky. But I do all these weird things that nobody notices that I do, but I do them, and it makes my brain feel better. So, but that's a little different, right?
For sure. I used to check doors to make sure that they were closed a certain amount of times for a while, and I feel like my anxiety kind of comes and goes depending on kind of what's going on in my life.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's really heightened, and I kind of go through these motions of when I leave the house, I have to make sure that I check the dials on the stove, or check to make sure my hair straightener's turned off, things like that.
Are you worried that you're gonna burn the
burn
totally
the house down?
Now,
Absolutely.
do you leave, get I don't know, 4 blocks down the street, and you're like, I left it on,
Yes.
It's gonna burn down?
I've done that.
Do you
before.
turn around?
Mm-hmm.
And you turn around?
I have done that before, yes.
Have you ever come back and found that it's still plugged in?
No.
Never have
No.
you?
No, not at all.
Right.
It's always put away and completely cooled down.
Yeah.
Everything's been turned off. Probably has been turned off for days, but for some reason my brain just tells me, nope, you got to go back, because there's this impending disaster that you could possibly create.
Isn't that funny that it does that? And then it's like, I now feel like the thoughts inside of my head are somehow going to control the events in the world, right?
Absolutely.
That's what superstition is. And my sister, I talk to her pretty much every morning, and excuse me, every once in a while we'll be on the phone. She's like, did I turn my Berlin iron off? And I said, yes, you did. And I've always told her, I said, take a picture of it with it unplugged. Just take a picture of it, and then you're going to have the goddamn timestamp on there, right? Have you ever thought about doing that?
I have. My husband, though, also will double check things now for me, because he kind of understands that okay, this is something that could potentially make us go back to the apartment. So he actually,
it's for his own self-preservation.
He's like, okay, I'll make sure to check these things, and so it's actually kind of nice that he'll say, oh nope, it was off, nope, you're good.
Yeah.
And then I feel much better, because there's this other person telling me no, we're good, everything's turned off. So.
Do you feel a guilt for being anxious about those things?
Sometimes I just try to think okay, maybe this is totally normal. I haven't really had a lot of opportunities to talk to other people about anxiety, and I feel like now in the last few years I've been able to do that, and so it's nice to kind of see that okay, this is actually a pretty normal thing, right? But I think you know, for a while I thought like maybe something was wrong with me.
What do you mean by wrong with you? Like you just thought that you were your own, like
Yeah.
nobody else thought the way that you thought?
Right. Yeah, that I was kind of like in my head and in a way like just I don't know, just like not normal, I guess.
Okay.
That something was not quite right. And yeah, and it did. I mean, and that in itself caused me a lot of anxiety.
Yeah.
And you know, I kind of tried to deal with it on my own, and try to deal with it through, you know, medication and struggled for a really long time to try to find like the right balance. I think it's something that I thought, okay, if I just tell my doctor about this, you know, and she'll give me something or recommend something, and then it'll all be over with. I kind of just thought that it was something.
It will all be over with, right? But it
yeah.
never is.
No, and
it's just
really,
one thing after the other.
Yeah, and it's something you have to like live with, and but also I think just be comfortable enough to understand that like it's just a part of you, and it's just kind of a part of who you are,
right? And
how you operate, and it's not bad. It's not anything to be ashamed of. It just is what it is.
So I remember when I was a kid,
mm-hmm.
and one of the things that I got real fucked up about and had my mind wrapped about and I was anxious about was religion. Specifically this idea of God and the devil, heaven and hell. Mm-hmm. Like these things were real. I don't know if I literally thought I was going to be on fire forever, but I literally thought there was this place of pure bliss and then pure damnation, whatever. And
nowhere in between,
right? And one night I remember I was talking to my mom, and we lived in this little house, and we were in the little kitchen, and I was talking to her, and I asked her, I don't know why, I think I was really worried about the devil. And it's all right, Brock. And I asked her, I said, Mom, do you believe in the devil? Now I meant, do you like worship the devil? And I don't know why I thought my mom worshiped the devil, but I was so worried that she did. And she told me, yes, I do believe in the devil. And I said, what? And it was like a whole body experience.
Right.
What she was trying to say is, I believe the devil exists.
Got it.
I thought she was like, believed in the devil. So I excused myself from the table. And I went back to my bedroom. And I was in that room for like 30 minutes. And I was like, I don't know, you ever pace when you're like really upset?
I don't, but it's interesting because you had mentioned like kind of the physical reaction.
Yes,
like for me, it's like it starts in my head, and then for whatever reason, like I can start to kind of reconcile it in my head, but then the physical reaction just stays. So my heart races, and yeah, my limbs feel like sore almost.
So is it almost like you have a flu?
Kind of, and then I just feel exhausted.
Yeah. Like
I think it's just from my heart racing, and then all of a sudden I just feel so tired, and then just and that like lingers. Like I can reconcile like an anxiety attack like in my brain, but then like the physical symptoms like linger for hours.
Okay.
And it's just really, really frustrating.
Yeah, and then it's like, and I'm going to ask you about this in a second, but like when I had that experience with my mom, I couldn't come out later and say, well, Mom, I just want to let you know I just had a really rough time in my bedroom because I was pretty sure you worshipped Beelzebub and you're going to go to hell. Because hell, again, was a very real thing to me. And I keep coming back to this, but I think it's fucked up that we teach kids about hell, but that's a whole other thing. Anyway, did you ever have an experience when you were a kid, maybe around your family, where you were like really sad for somebody else in your family, but you didn't know how to say it to them?
I'm trying to think. I mean, I can't really think of like any particular situation, but I think like, you know, there were times when like, you know, if I had a sibling who was upset about something, or, you know, a parent who was, you know, stressed out or something like that, I almost like put that on my shoulders. Like I almost like, I feel things very, and I did when I was a kid, I still do now. I feel things very intensely, and I don't like seeing people upset. And so I would like, in a way, like start becoming like as upset as they were, and like attempt to kind of like put that on myself and like try to comfort them. And
when you say put it on yourself, did you think that you were even when you were young in your
Mm-hmm.
brain, did you think that you were literally taking something from somebody and saying, I will
Yeah,
take it on, that type of
I
thing?
was trying. I think for on some level, I thought that like, I'm already feeling pretty sad most of the time. I think I can just kind of handle this. I thought that I could.
Okay.
Um,
You were feeling pretty sad most of the time, just a base level of sad.
yeah,
And this
yeah, from
is,
a very young age. Yeah.
did you talk to anybody about it?
Yeah, I mean, I talked to my parents about it, and they were, super encouraging and asked me, like, what's going on, especially things around school. They wanted to like make sure everything was okay. My mom was a teacher, so she was used to kind of understanding like how
Music
to,
teacher, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
a band director, yeah.
Yep. Awesome.
And so, she was really used to like, helping kids, and she always was, gosh, her students to this day, like, talk to her and keep in touch. She was like a super empathetic person, and just always like very, very what's the word? But just very empathetic, right?
What, can I ask you something?
Yeah,
Was
sure.
she? Do you feel she had the same empathy with you that she did with her students?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think obviously it was different because I was her daughter, and I think
Yeah.
she was super protective. But I think she had such a big heart. She still does. She, I think, tried to help her students as much as she could. And I think she kind of showed the same type of, empathy and comfort that she did to me towards them.
Do you feel like that you, when you had that empathy to take things off of each other,
Mhm.
is that something you feel that you learned by watching your mom? Like, remember the old, I'm sorry, I always think of this old drugs commercial from the 80s where a dad finds a kid with drugs and he's like, where did you get this? I learned it from watching you. So obviously your mom's not a drug addict, but did you feel like you were in some ways emulating her? Was your
Um,
mom sad?
I honestly don't know. I mean, I've never really had a conversation with her about that. I think it would be a great conversation to have with her. But I think, I saw, and I think at times, whether it was just trying to not, I just didn't like seeing people upset, and I felt like if I could be of any kind of comfort or help to them, I tried. But I think in turn, it didn't really allow me the chance when I was sad about something to really go to anybody else. Because I kind of then
You,
said like, oh well, I can take care of this. I can
right,
take
you,
care
I
of
can handle it.
right,
I can handle theirs. Why can't I handle mine?
right.
Did that make you mad?
I don't think it made me mad. Maybe frustrated sometimes. Mostly just at myself. Like frustrated that I couldn't like just have a conversation or be upset and that be okay. I think I was frustrated with the times where I really did want to express sadness or disappointment
Mm-hmm.
or just things not going well.
Well, wait a minute. Did somebody tell you couldn't express it, or were you
Of course
stopping
not.
yourself?
No, and nobody, I mean, honestly, I was thinking about this the other day, and like nobody in my life ever told me that I couldn't do those things, which I think is really interesting. Somehow I had formed some kind of idea that it wasn't okay for me to be as expressive.
So do you think that you do you do this like somebody says, "Oh, oh my God, I feel really guilty. I did X, Y, and Z," and you're like, "That's fine. You're a person." And then if you did it, you're
Yeah.
like, "That's not fine."
Right.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
totally.
sorry, higher standard. One time, sorry, just one time. So
Frick.
oh, calm down, Brock. All right, so going back to the having the parents and having the family and them be sad and taking it on. I remember when I was 7, my mom had to. She was having a hard time with depression, struggling real bad, and she had to go to hospital for a little while. And I remember we went to visit her one time, and she had made me this wooden box,
Oh, wow.
and on top of it were these baseball players.
Okay.
Because I love baseball, and all you had to do was open it, and she said you can put your baseball card. And I remember she gave it to me, and I remember, but Mom, your mom, you you don't have to do these things for me. You're my mom. You
Right.
can do anything. And I remember looking at that box and thinking, you don't, please don't feel you have to do this.
Did you feel like very guilty that?
I felt sad for her.
Okay.
And then we had this like, but then I took that box home, and I would keep my most valuable baseball cards in there, like my Bo Jackson rookie card was in there, and I just remember being like, I thought to myself, it's so sad that she feels she has to do this for me, and that's how I thought about it then. Now I see it differently. Did you ever feel any sort of when you were a kid, like if you got frustrated, if you got sad, did your family ever react poorly to that?
And honestly, like I really kept a lot of that from them when I was feeling sad. That's
What would you do? What do you mean kept it from them? What would you do?
I would just kind of go in my room and listen to music.
What kind of music would you listen to?
Oh gosh, I listened to a lot of Beatles when I was a kid.
Oh, the Beatles.
Oh, yeah. You know something about that?
A little bit.
So yeah, I mean, and it's interesting because my mom was a huge Beatles fan, and so, honestly, like one of my earliest memories is listening to "Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds," and I was obsessed. Like I just became like so incredibly just entrenched in every single song. I would, go through my mom's old collections of like Beatle bubblegum cards and posters and all this other stuff that she had from when she was a kid. So yeah, I really, a lot of times when I was sad or when I was going through just terrible times in school and being bullied and made fun of and everything else, I think a lot of it was like I knew that my parents were working really hard. I knew that my mom was working really hard. I knew that they had a lot on their plates, and I just kind of just kept it inward. Like I just kind of would come home and go in my room and just listen to my music. And
what did you said earlier? Sorry, bullied. You were bullied at school?
Oh yeah.
What can I ask? what like were people just would they say mean shit to you? That
Oh yeah, yeah. I was made fun of for my weight a lot, and I had very very short hair at the time, and I was made fun of for that. Yeah, those were kind of the two things, and I was pretty shy kid too. Wasn't very outgoing, and so there were people who were mean about that, and kids can be pretty cruel.
Yes.
And that stays with you. You think you grow out of it, but a lot of that stuff is so, I feel like, ingrained in some of the ways you operate.
Do you still feel like, if you're not consciously thinking about it, that is playing a part in your daily life, that type of stuff?
It can kind of creep in there every once in a while, especially in times where, like, I feel like maybe uncomfortable in, like, a crowd of people or something like that, or I feel like I'm at the gym and I'm being judged, things like that.
But you're a runner.
Yeah.
And you've run marathons, and you're running the marathon this year.
I am,
is that right?
Yeah. I'm starting training pretty soon. So.
And do you feel, not to skip too far ahead because we're still in the childhood. Did you run as a kid?
No, that was another thing. Yeah, I was not, and a lot of it was because I was very just uncomfortable in my own skin, and I didn't want to exercise. I didn't want to wear shorts. I didn't want to. I used to wear like really baggy jeans and large shirts and things like that to just really hide myself, basically. I was just so incredibly ashamed of the way I looked because kids would just be pretty relentlessly making fun of me.
So, were you ashamed of the way you looked before kids said that shit?
No, not really.
Not good.
Not that I remember. I mean,
yeah.
Before that, I don't think I really had any kind of. It was never really on my mind. I just was, a happy
you
kid
were just a person.
Playing. Yeah, it never really crossed my mind that like something was different about me. I was just being who I was.
Do you ever think too? I mean, I think it's pretty easy to armchair quarterback it all, but or I guess armchair psychiatrist, whatever it is. Like, think back, of course, those kids are upset. Thank you. Those kids are upset.
Yeah.
And then they're just putting it on you.
Oh, for sure.
I remember, so when I was junior high, early high school, maybe even into, I don't know if I bullied people that way, but I was real intense with people, and there were certain people that I was probably envious of in my own way, that I would just put it out on them. And I would really berate them. Who?
What type of person would you do that to?
Well, Ryan. I would do that to, like, okay, so I had a friend named Ryan, and he was just kind of he's very kind of dopey and all this stuff, and but everybody seemed to love him, and I remember thinking to myself, why? I'm over here trying really hard, and he doesn't seem to be trying, and why does everybody... And
you're jealous a little?
I was very envious.
Yeah.
And it made me sad, and I'd be like, what do I have to do? And so I would take it out on this poor guy, and I'd be like, you're a fake, you're a phony, all this shit. I remember one time driving, this was high school, driving, and my beautiful 85 Honda Civic hatchback.
Nice.
Yeah, oh, yeah. And
you should know that the crowd is rather responsive to the idea of you being an asshole as a kid.
Is that right?
Yeah, they can't believe it.
Oh, believe it. I was not...
With heavy sarcastic tone.
Oh, I see. That's very good.
Yeah, so a bunch of the questions are about, like, how does that stuff in the past, like, affect you?
Well, I guess I'm going to start with you.
Oh, gosh.
If I may.
Yeah,
I mean, talking about what we were talking about, the way that you changed the way that you wore clothes... and the bullying that you got and things you were told, how does that, is that something that is still in your life?
You know, sometimes I think the lack of confidence that was a big part of that creeps in, definitely. But I also try to, like, see it as an opportunity to be like, okay, I went through this and I know, you know, how this feels. And you know, I'm older now, and to your point, like, those kids were probably also in a really bad place too, you know, and acting out in a way that was, you know, not very nice, but, you know, clearly they were going through something too, right? And I think most kids, that's, you know, depending on what's happening in their lives, you know, they either turn inward or they project outwards, right? And there's that dynamic. I think in my life now, it's actually made me more empathetic, because I feel that, and I can understand that and see it in other people and see that similar pain, and try to understand, like, you know, maybe they didn't have the exact same story that I did, but something similar, something along those lines. So while, you know, it's not a great thing to have gone through, I think, and maybe this is cliche, but it's true for me, at least. It's definitely made me a stronger person. It's made me more resilient, I think, to that kind of, you know, criticism or judgment, because I know that I've lived through it, but then also, like, you know, when I see it happen to other people, I'm very, like...
You feel protective?
I feel very protective, and so...
Do you think that's similar to how you felt that you wanted to take on your family's pain, or anybody you care about's pain, type of thing? For sure. Yeah.
And, you know, and obviously, like, you know, that's always tough, depending on, you know, how much... Oh, no.
Yeah.
Beverage malfunction.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's good that, you know, I still feel like I can do that, you know. But I think now it's also balancing how much I can take on versus how much I just need to be there for that person and really help them.
It's
kind
a
of
tough balance.
It is, you know,
because you can't Oh no, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, because I think when I was younger, I definitely wanted to take all of it on, and I wanted to like solve the problems, and I wanted to, I didn't want anybody to be super upset and just going through pain. I remember, now that we're talking about this, there's this memory that's come up. When I was a kid, I went to a sleepover with one of my friends, and her parents had this really huge fight the night and decided that they were going to separate.
That night?
Yeah. And so, of course, they were like, her and her sister were there, and they were crying and really upset.
So you knew that that the fight led to them,
yes.
They were going to separate.
Yeah.
And this is your friend's parents at their house. Okay,
yes.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. And so, and of course, it was just, I never experienced anything like that before. Yeah. I was just, and I was, I
Wait, were you at my house?
Actually, yes, no.
Oh,
okay. But, no, I mean, it was one of those things where, like, I started crying hysterically as soon as they started crying, because I just, for whatever reason, felt like I needed to try to transfer their pain to me, and somehow that if I could, and again, this doesn't make a lot of sense, but, when you're a kid, like, you're still kind of figuring things out. So I started crying hysterically. I started, like, feeling just awful and just really, like, just overly empathizing and trying to take on, just trying to not have them hurt anymore, and it was awful. And then, by the end of the night, my mom came to pick me up, and it was one of those things where, like, she and I remained pretty good friends afterwards, and we just, it was just one of those experiences that, going through, I went home and just told my parents I love them. So it was, but yeah, like that was incredibly intense, and I just knew at that moment, like, wow, okay, you feel things really intensely, and it's great, because then when you're really happy and when things go really well, there's this amazing feeling. But then on the flip side, when things go really bad,
you feel it real intense, right?
Oh yeah.
I'm very much the same way. It's a bit dulled with the medication now, but
for sure, same here.
I'm very very much the same way. And I think back to what you were answering, and then for me, as a kid, I don't know if I don't know. I don't think I felt shame about my own sadness. I felt shame about my own difference. And usually when I'm sad, to this day, I'm much more irritable. Okay. And because I'm heavy on my own self, and I'm just beating the shit out of myself when I'm sad. And when I was a kid, I was doing that, and I didn't know I was doing that, and I didn't know what was going on, but I was just really fucking angry. Yeah. And then I would just lash out at people, and that led to kind of the behavior I was talking about earlier. Strangely enough, now, in my 30s, I find myself really wary of being that way. Really, really, really wary of being intense. Okay. For a long time in my family, I was the problem. And I didn't like rob liquor stores, but I caused a lot of emotional tumults and all this stuff. And of course. And so now I try very hard to be calm and steady. And it very much is like me at one point saying, okay, you're not that person. But I think I am. But it's just like, you're not going to be that person right now.
Right, you're not going to be that person today.
And I guess that's part of growing up and learning about yourself and all that bullshit. So, speaking of going into adulthood, let's just call adulthood 18, right? We'll just sure. We'll say you can die for your country and you're an adult. I don't understand why you can't drink, but whatever. Excuse me. And I didn't drink till I was 18.
What about the weed, man?
I don't have an answer for that. But my question for you is, like, going into adulthood, 18, 19, sure. 20, 21, in that time, did you have maybe a different experience where you were just something happened and you were really sad, or anything like that happened in your life?
Yeah, so when I was 19, my mom was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis.
Oh wow.
I was at my sophomore year of college, so I was actually like away, from my
How far?
family. About 2 hours.
Okay.
So yeah, and it was quite the shock because it was something that my mom had been feeling ill for a little bit. The doctors really weren't sure what it was. She had gone through a series of tests. And once she got the diagnosis, I think there was a part of a little bit of relief because we knew what it was. But then very shortly after there wasn't a whole lot of time after that where it was just very heavy. And I felt just awful. And I felt such...
Awful. Why did you feel awful?
I think because I wasn't there. I think
Okay.
because I was at school and I was doing my own thing. I was off on my own and I wasn't there. And I think I felt an immense amount of guilt about not being there. And an immense amount of sadness for knowing what she was about to go through. And just really wanting to be there to help her to go through that.
Did she tell you when you would, I imagine, speak with her on the phone?
Mm-hmm.
Did she tell you, you don't need to be here, it's okay?
Oh yeah.
You be at school. Did that help at
Yeah.
all?
No, I mean,
No.
she would continue to say like, tell me about your classes, tell me about these things. And she was really excited about the classes I was taking and the fact that I was doing all these really cool projects and stuff. And the entire conversations I would just be like, oh, I need to be home. I need to be home. I need to be home. And she would tell me like, no, I'm glad that you're doing this. I'm glad that, you're in school and you're getting your degree. But yeah, I just, it was kind of going back to that whole, like, I wanted to take that pain away, and carry that because I felt like, okay, well, I'm already in this very sad place. I'll just continue to carry this.
Do you mean very sad place, just like you talked about earlier, or you in general?
Just in general, yeah.
Yeah. Do you just have bouts of sadness?
Yeah, mostly just times where, either things kind of come up out of memory or, I have a tough day or, I do a lot of worrying, a lot of worrying.
Yeah.
And that kind of promotes that feeling of sadness and depression.
When you were 19, when your mother was diagnosed,
Mm-hmm.
You were already a sad person. You were already
Mm-hmm.
had, at some point in your life, probably tried to take something away from your mom, emotionally maybe, to help her.
Mm-hmm.
And then she has something that you can't take away.
Yeah.
And then you're 2 hours away.
Yeah.
So did you feel like did that compound the issue?
Yeah, definitely the distance, and then just already kind of adding on top of feeling sad, feeling very alone, really as well. Like I was in a new city, I didn't really know anybody.
What city, if I may?
Oh, in Richmond.
Richmond, Virginia. It's a
Yeah.
good city. Yeah. I like.
You know a little
Richmond.
bit about it, yeah.
I lived there for a year. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and also embarking on college was tough. And again, it was also the first time I'd ever been away from home. So there was just a lot of kind of, like, to your point, kind of compounding things that were happening. And it was very, very stressful. And
how did that manifest when you would hang out with your friends?
I would try to, like, crack jokes, and just try not to talk about it, honestly. I felt like if I talked about it, I would just kind of crumble into this mess, really. And I really, I think from the time I was very little, I always like wanted to. I didn't have I wasn't very successful in making friends. I was a very quiet and shy kid and very timid to make friends. And so when I did have friends, I also was kind of afraid of sharing that sad part of myself with them. I thought maybe.
Were you afraid it would scare them off?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Because I thought, again, maybe something was wrong, something was different, and I didn't want to potentially have them run for the hills, I guess.
Like Iron Maiden.
There you go.
Yeah. So do you think that when you would hide that or not want to share it, would that cause you to be more like, now I'm going to tell some jokes, or I need to do this to cover it up, like kind of you just said a minute ago? Would you feel resentment at all?
No, I mean, I think sometimes I would feel like, okay, wow, like I am not normal. Like it seems like everyone else is well adjusted, can deal with these things. You know, I would also see like other kids talking about sad things or talking about, you know, tough stuff that was going on in their life, and I was like, oh, wish I could do that, but I just can't.
You talk about it.
Yeah, like talk about it to them, and I just couldn't.
Did you ever talk to anybody teenage years, like therapist or anything? Did you ever go to a therapist when you were 8 and say that you were a black belt in karate?
I did not.
Okay, I did.
Do you know what I
I said all this shit, and so this is a fun little thing. So I was forced to go to therapy. I didn't really know why, but I went.
Oh boy!
And there was this other kid in the therapy with me.
Okay.
And we would do co-therapy or whatever you want to call it.
Okay.
And one day my dad came to pick me up from therapy outside of this big red brick building, and this kid said to me, "Hey, show me that spinning kick." I've been talking about a spinning kick.
God.
So I kind of just jumped and did a kick, and my dad goes, "What are you doing?" And I was like, just showing him a kick. But like, I can't imagine what the therapist was sitting there on the notepad just being like, "Illusions of grandeur." I said, I remember I told her I went to California for a karate tournament.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, all this shit. Because I didn't know why I was there.
Right.
I mean, obviously...
Were you just like, do you feel like you just had to like make stuff up to just, because you were just like,
guess.
nervous, or...
I honestly don't know. And then a couple years later, in fifth grade, I was forced to go to the school shrink, and I didn't know why either. I didn't get it. I was like, what? What's the problem? And yeah, anyway, enough about that. So, as an adult... do you find that you react to your own sadness in the same way? Do you find that's evolved? Anything like that?
Yeah, I think as an adult, like I understand now that it's really a process that I go through, and that it's
Tell me about the process.
I mean, just that like I'll feel these feelings very intensely when they first come on, and there's going to be a time that's going to be there, and then I kind of use things to kind of bring me out of it. Music's really the thing that's been, you know, the thing that I've used pretty much my whole life. Yeah. Is just listening to music, sometimes reading, just a way to almost like massage my brain in a way. Like it kind of helps.
I love that imagery. Yeah. Massage my brain. I think about that a lot too. Yeah. Sometimes I want to reach into my head and just dig my brain out.
Because how often do you just do that? This?
Well, I don't know if I often do this, but I've spent a lot of time hitting my head.
What?
I've spent a lot of time hitting my head. This has been a long time since I've done this, but I'll hit my head because I can't take that anxious feeling at the front of my brain. And it's like I want to get in there and dig it out.
You just want it to leave.
Yes. But
never come back.
Right. Going back to the process, that's a really good way to say it, right? Because the thing is, when you're sad, when you're anxious, the first thing you want to do is like, I don't like this, let's fight it. And then it just sticks.
It sticks longer, I feel like. For me, like I would fight it for so long, and then it would just kind of stay around. I wouldn't really like actually give it time to be like, okay, you know, you're gonna go through this, and it's okay. And I think a lot of it also now as an adult, I've realized that like it's okay to be sad. It's really okay to like have these deep, very intense feelings, and you know it's going to pass at some point, and that's all right. Like it's okay, because I again, like when I was younger, I really hid it. I didn't really talk about it. I thought something was wrong with me.
So the whole time you're hiding it.
Yeah.
You're also fighting yourself.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh yeah, and like, you know, telling myself that, okay, you know, something's wrong with you. why can't you be happy? Everybody else around you seems happy.
But I have to ask, I mean, that still has to be around a little bit, right?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I don't think it ever goes away.
Yeah. The patterns, right? We
the
get into patterns.
Yeah. Yeah. And sometimes, you know, it's funny. Like, I used to actually, for a while, like really actually kind of enjoy going to that sad place because it was so comforting of, you know, okay, this is how I used to really, really intensely get into those things when I was a kid. And now, like, you know, when it happens, I'm like, okay, you know, this is, like I said, this is going to be short-lived. I'm gonna, you know, feel this intensely for hours. I'm gonna use that time to try to be productive, or try to, like, you know, dig into a book or dig into an album that I really want to listen to. Or, you know, maybe, and again, it really changes too, like depending on the intensity. Sometimes I'll just, you know, go for a walk and sit in my room and just cry, like, and it's okay. You know, I don't feel as ashamed about it anymore, because I think it's important to just be able to process those things. So I think, you know, as a kid, to process, yeah, as a kid, I felt really ashamed. I felt really like I had to hide this, because, you know, I didn't want to upset, or I didn't want to, you know, any friends that I had to, like, leave and you know, be like, oh.
So you thought if the moment you showed any sort of sadness or anything, your friends would just be like, well,
yep,
getting the fuck out of here.
Yep.
Yeah.
Which is, you know, completely just bizarre, right? But that's kind of how I thought when I was a kid. I was just like,
I feel like, yeah, and I feel like I even deal with that now, and in a different way. I always try really hard to listen to the people I love, my friends. I try really hard to be there for people, but then people will ask me stuff, and I'll be like, oh yeah, and I'll just like mumble something, and I was like, I don't want to talk about it.
Right. Yeah, you just, because I think, you know, for me feeling like things so intensely, like, I know that if I start down that path, it's going to be a very tough path, and it's like, I don't want to, it's almost like I don't want to then transfer my pain to somebody else, right? But then I have to realize that, like, no, that's okay. Like, they're, like, people can, like, and that's,
do you ever realize, like, sorry, go ahead, sorry.
Well, no, I mean, just that, like, how they choose to help and empathize is kind of their thing.
It's their thing, exactly right. And I've spent a lot of time in relationships and friendships and in my family, deciding that I know how they feel, and I'm going to ascribe that feeling to that person.
Yep.
And that's a way that I can control the situation.
Yes, the whole control thing is a big one for sure. Yeah. And
so can I ask? You say control's a big one, and you said that you wanted to.
Wait, time out.
Yeah.
We want to get
let's
questions here, and we've got a good one.
Yeah.
Question is, Richmond. Have you ever been to Babes?
Hell yes.
Gosh.
Have you been to Babes in Carytown?
I have not, but I've been by there. But it's a bar, right?
It's a bar. It's a bar I went to for the first time with my dear friend Michael.
Oh, I've
told you about this. Yeah. And they had a burger and a PBR, and it was $5. And we were sitting in the booth. And we were just kind of sitting there, and I was looking around, and there were, like, seriously probably nine pictures of Melissa Etheridge.
Oh.
And I was just looking around, and I was just like, oh, there's so many fucking Melissa Etheridge pictures.
Oh, no.
It was a lesbian bar, which we dumbasses, we figured out later. But so you never went to Babes?
No, I knew of it, and I used to, like, go down to Carytown a lot. I would
Carytown's cool as hell, man.
Yeah, I would ride my bike, and then it got stolen. I was really sad.
There's multiple reactions that are basically questioning your sexual orientation.
Questioning mine?
Yeah.
Okay. What do they want to know?
No. They were just saying that you got very, very, very excited about that answer.
Oh, about Yes, I did. If you'd like, I'll sing "Come to My Window." It's fine. Whatever works, man. No, we went there during the greatest party ever that humans ever had, the blissful drinking shit fuck. I love
and there's greetings from Sweden.
Greetings from Sweden.
Oh, wow.
Greetings from Sweden.
Hello.
I don't know, how do you say hello in Swedish?
We
Hi.
would love to.
Well, I'm glad you're watching. God, what time is it there? Like 5 a.m?
Oh my gosh, that's right, yeah.
5, 6. Well, whatever. Hello, welcome. So I want to ask you. You've mentioned music a lot.
Yeah.
Were there any other questions?
No.
Okay. You've mentioned music a lot,
Right.
and something you told me.
But it's 3:54 a.m.
3:54. Man, it feels like 3:54 for me because I usually am asleep by this time. So I thank you for watching. I hope it will help you go to sleep at least.
And everybody says you need to smoke more weed, Kevin.
Do they?
Yeah.
Well,
It's the consensus of the
apparently-
chat group
apparently-
is that you don't smoke enough weed.
Apparently, my dad is watching. So, no, music. You had told me, and you mentioned this. You would like when you were a kid, you'd go in a room, you'd listen to the tape recorder.
Yeah.
As an adult, who are some artists that you listen to? Actually, can I just tell a quick story?
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
I remember the first year I lived in Chicago, I had 2 roommates, and one day I was feeling sad, and I put on some Tom Waits, like early Tom Waits, like the piano,
The closing
drunk.
time.
Yeah, closing time. It was closing time. And I put it on, and I was laying on the floor in my roommate's room. She wasn't home. And I realized I was listening to it, and I was all sad, and I looked down and around, and I was in the pose of like I was being crucified. And I was like, well, I should probably go to the store. Because that's a little bit much, right?
That's intense.
So, like, I got really indulged. And when I was
Right.
in college, I would listen to, like, 80s Tom Waits and drink and just get real about it. What about you? Like, now, what do you like to listen to if you're sad?
Oh gosh, if I'm sad, a lot of Elliott Smith.
Yeah.
A lot of Belle and Sebastian.
Okay.
A lot of actually like early Dylan.
You like, okay. Like, when you say early Dylan, what record?
Freewheelin',
Yeah.
Another Side, Blood on the Tracks is so good.
Favorite album ever?
There you go. I'm trying to think what else. I mean, those are kind of the 2 ones that I go to. Yeah, I mean, I remember as a kid I used to like lay on the ground like listening to music, and there would be times when I have this like really vivid memory of like laying in my room when I was a kid, and All Apologies came on by Nirvana, and I just cried and cried and cried, and it was great. Like,
Felt great.
Yeah, because it was like this moment of like, okay, like I just felt like such a connection to the music, and the music really just helped me. I feel like just got me through that moment, and I feel like now, you know, I listen to a lot of music on my headphones or when I'm at my apartment, and it kind of just gets me through different moments of my day, you know, different transitions throughout my day. So, you know, when I'm on my way to work, or when I'm coming home from work, or I'm at the gym, or I'm just on a walk, you know, I'll put on different records, and you know, it's kind of that, again, that kind of massage for my brain, to kind of get myself from different points throughout my day, basically.
Okay. Yeah. Going back to that, are there certain lyrics that stick out to you that you even come back to again and again, especially if you're like, man, I'm really upset about something that happened today, or I'm really upset about this part of my personal life, whatever it may be. Is there a certain thing that you would return to in music, or is it just kind of like...
Yeah, I mean, there's certain songs. Sons and Daughters by the Ephemeris is one of those songs where it's not necessarily a terribly sad song, but it just, for whatever reason, I don't know if it's just the repetition of the the kind of the triad of like the different parts coming in and everything else. And it's also just kind of like seemingly very hopeful. So sometimes I listen to that. To Ramona by Dylan is such a great song.
Everything passes, everything changes.
Yeah.
Just do what you think you should do.
And then Bob Dylan's Dream is another one, which just
such a
really
wonderful song.
Really great song.
So on a deeper note, what they want to know is what artist's death made you the most sad?
Oh
Could it be a death that happened before I was born?
Whatever emotionally disturbs you the most.
Yeah, I was gonna say
John Lennon, probably.
Yeah, for me too.
But
yeah.
if I'm gonna say somebody like who died when I was alive, I keep thinking of John Candy.
Yeah,
I was really sad when John Candy died. I love John Candy. I would watch these movies. I'd watch Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, Uncle Buck, Volunteers, his last movie, which was terrible, called Wagons East. And I remember being in my driveway shooting baskets when I found out John Candy died, and I just felt really sad because he was just. There's nothing. There seemed to be nothing impure about him.
Right.
Just
and then all of a sudden he was no longer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's one I can think of, at least in my in my life, which is a great song. So
Wagons East.
Yeah, that movie's not good.
Yeah, I think for me it was Kurt Cobain, which I know for a lot of people it was, but it was also like he passed away when I was 11, so it was like right around that time of like I was kind of starting to like move away from listening to the music that my parents had, and my older brother was listening to a lot of Nirvana, and I'd listened to a lot of Nirvana, and I still vividly remember coming home from school and watching Kurt Loder on on MTV News, and those type keys came up.
Yeah.
And I remember just like looking and watching that and going, what? This can't be. I mean, I remember seeing the MTV Unplugged.
Not long before that.
Yeah, and being just and just how lovely that was, and that was like the first time that I really thought about like, oh wow, somebody who, you know, I have this, you know, who I really love their art and really loved what they did, and was no longer there, and no longer there by his own means, and you know, it was incredibly powerful. And so as far as like those who passed away in my lifetime, like as far as artists, that was the one that I think really hit me.
I thought of another one
intensely.
too. That's David Foster Wallace.
Okay.
That I think about him most days, but David Foster Wallace, big time. For anybody who doesn't know, he was a writer. He's probably my favorite writer, and I was sitting on a couch in West Virginia when I saw that he'd killed himself, and I called two of my friends, and it's just fucking he hanged himself, and that scares me. Well, I think we're coming to...
When you say it scares you?
It scares me because I worry about suicide. It scares me because I don't think I'd ever kill myself, but it scares me because I've had thoughts about it. I've had thoughts about it a lot of my life. I remember sitting at a pool party when I was a kid talking to a friend of mine about suicide, and that friend actually later in life took his own life. I always joke with my sister about, like, she'll make dark jokes. I'm like, listen, the suicide jokes are mine, okay? Back the fuck off. But it's just...
That's when she tells you to get on a train, dude.
Yeah, and she did. It scares me because David Foster Wallace was brilliant. I'm not, but I saw a lot of myself in what he wrote, and then it scares me that he went to where he went.
Absolutely,
it's a scary place. So that's what I mean. So I think we're gonna wrap it up.
Okay.
I do want to say this. We talked about Blood on the Tracks earlier, and the lyric in Richmond, Virginia, that I first I'd listened to Dylan before, but I took Blood on the Tracks with me November 30th, 2006, in my Discman, and Simple Twist of Fate. And there's a line where he says, "People tell me it's a sin to know and feel too much within."
Yeah.
And that's just basically everything we've been talking about.
Yes.
And
so.
and then it goes on to say, "I still believe she was my twin." I remember I broke down crying in the back of that giant 15-passenger van, which, yeah, I just think it's why I love that line. Is it's like that's exactly how I feel, and based on what you were saying, that's exactly kind of how you felt when you were sad. You're like, I'm not supposed to feel this way.
Right. I'm not supposed to feel this intensely, but now I know it's okay. It's
right.
really all right. It's just who I am, and that's awesome. I wouldn't have it any other way. So.
Well, Jen, thanks for coming out.
Thank you for having me.
I appreciate it very much.
Thank you.
And thank you everybody for watching and your questions and your genuine surprise that I was an asshole as a child. I appreciate that. But hopefully we'll be back next week. Hopefully my friend Lauren will be here, and we'll talk to you again soon. Have a good night. Bye.